Hi Kimberly, it's Steve Floriston, and I'm just wanting to work through assessment 19.2 with you because it's quite a difficult assessment and probably pretty hard to do by yourself. So 19.2's got quite a few parts, and the first part of this is to view the information about the students, the two students, and then work out a delivery of service. So you can see in this slide here that for Jane Worth, you would put down information about her from the data that you have in your book, and then you would work out a delivery of service for that. So if we go down to relationships here, we see that Jane has a problem with relationships with other people. She tends to bully students, and so we need to provide some sort of delivery of service. So in the information section, we would just put down in there that Jane has trouble with relationships, and then and the fact that she's bullying students, she's been involved in a couple of fighting incidents, that sort of thing. In the delivery of service, we might put down something like some outside counselling, that we are working out a strategy that involves counselling for her. And so we go through each of these sections for Jane Worth, and you probably realise the main problem with her is mental health, depression type issues, and how we're going to deliver services for that, either using people within our school and our residence, or people outside the residence, or a combination of the two. So you just go through and do those for both girls, and I think that part is fairly straightforward. And then you come to this section here. It says you've suggested activities, referrals, events to meet the needs of these two students. How would you monitor these students to ensure they're meeting the students' needs? And so you would have strategies in here to work out whether or not the students' needs were being met. So you want to find out if there are any changes in behaviour, if it's about relationships, etc., with other students. Are there any changes in the students' behaviour, or are they just continuing as they were? You could talk to the student themselves. You could do an interview with the student themselves. You could interview the person who was providing the service, whether it was a counsellor, psychologist, or whatever. But just some ways of finding out whether the needs of these two students are being met. And then the second part of this is, how would you ensure that the services you're providing were flexible enough to meet the changing need? And this is where we really need to observe the student, find out if there are actually changing needs, and then have contingencies in place to meet those changing needs. So that might be actually ceasing the counselling, or it might be going to a different person, or a different type of counsellor, or a different type of program altogether. So I hope that makes sense. So this is the next part, and this is the part that you phoned us about. It's a combination of three items here. It's this part here that you're looking at now is relevant budget items for the annual program, and so it's got down here staff, special needs, and then you can see on this next sheet it's got minor capital resources, staff training, and other. And the purpose of this is to make sure that we can put together an annual program, but that we can actually resource this out of the budget, out of the existing budget. So we might start by looking at the budget, at the program itself, and I'm just bringing that up now. You can see on the screen the school program, and it's broken down into topics, activity, resources, and personnel, and you can see it runs through to the end of the year. There would be another section after this again, and we did this yesterday with a group, and I'm just going to put up what they brainstormed this out, and you've got to remember that they come from the Darwin area, and so the way they view this is probably all a little bit different, even though they were supposed to be doing this for the Mitford students, and that's what you're supposed to be doing as well. It does have a sort of Darwin flavour about it. And so I know that's probably a little hard to read, but you know, the first thing they decided to do was to go through and cross out all the holidays. So they went through and crossed out, put a line through all the holidays, and then they went through and put down topics for each section of this. And so you can see that in February, for instance, they had induction, and then the second topic they had was to talk about manners, the sort of manners that they wanted in the residence. And then I'm just trying to see the next one. They talked about, I can't quite see it, you can probably see it better than I can. I think it was, yep, I can't see it, but you'll see that the last one is money and key cards. Oh, the other one was routines, just, you know, talking to students about routines. So the topics for this first month were, you know, where they were just trying to bed in these routines, manners, and all that sort of thing. And they did one, I guess, other sort of topic, and that is talking about money and key cards and that sort of thing. So they might have just done that themselves, or had another staff member come in and talk about it. And it's the sort of thing that, when it's up here as a topic, that you might spend, you know, 30 minutes or something one evening after dinner talking about it, so that these sort of topics get covered as you go through the year. Now, looking at activities, their main activity was induction, and then you'll see that they said that their February and March and October, November are dominated by football, the weekends. So they just put that in as activities. For resources, they needed buses and food. And we worked out what would you need, ideally, what would you need per student, available money per student each week. And they said they wanted $15 per person per week. And the fact of the matter at the moment, for activities from their organisation, they were getting about $4.50. But anyway, they said ideally they would want that. So then they put it in onto the sheet. They put it in handwriting. I've typed this in. And you can see January school holidays, you've got February induction, manners, routines, money and key cards. March, the topics that they wanted to look at were things like alcohol and drugs, the law and you, cyber safety, sexuality, and then the activities were movies one weekend, and then football each weekend, every weekend. So the resources they needed again were the buses and the food, and they needed $15 per student per week. The personnel requirements in the first month, February, they didn't want anybody, any additional people. In March, they wanted the school-based police constable to come along and to talk to the students about the law and them, all the sort of things that they should know as young people. And they also wanted a visiting speaker to come in and talk about sexuality, safe sex, all that sort of thing. So you can see now that we're building up a program, but we need to make sure that we've got the money or the resources to be able to do that, and that's where the budget comes in. And you can see here the Mitford budget, and when you look down this, you can see there's administration. We're probably not going to be able to do much about administration. We'll probably leave it as it was. The same with property costs. You've got motor vehicle expenses, excursions, catering. Probably can't do much about catering. Major equipment and things like that. If you needed to take money from somewhere, you could probably take it from places like major equipment, and so on and so forth. So let's start by looking at the bottom one there, which is the manager and supervisor salary, including all on costs. So when you look at that, and I'm going back to now that first sheet, the annual program, and how we work out the resources and costings and all that sort of stuff for it. And so you would put notes all over this, and I don't care, when you send this back, I don't care whether you've got notes written all over it, that doesn't matter. That's actually the purpose of it. And just going back to this, the same with this. You might have lots of different notes against this. You know, you might say, I'm not going to change that. This will remain the same, etc., etc. You don't need an accountant or anybody to help you with this. This is just the purpose of this is to ensure that you are able to look at a budget and make sure that that budget will deliver the sort of resources that you need for the program. So you've got the staff component here of 532,000. And so the first question is, how many staff do you need? Typically, what are they paid? And what can we actually get for $532,000? And so there might be a little bit of guesswork in here, but up here we were guessing that the manager would be paid around $100,000. That includes their on costs like superannuation. Supervisors are probably paid around $60,000, including on costs. And so the total, what we've got here so far is that we've got one manager and 6 supervisors, and that is a total of $460,000, and that leaves us $72,000. And so while we're here, we were just looking down at the next column, and the next column is special needs. You know, if you've got special needs. And so you might want to just prepare for that contingency by, say, having available enough money to provide a special needs tutor 2 nights a week. So that would be 2 nights a week, a couple of hours, $55 an hour, and so that's $8,360. Now, I'm not sure where that's going to come from, but that's where we go back to the budget and have a look. And you can go down through the rest of this. I've started to put some items in here, but you'll probably have other items as well. Now, the $15 per student per week, that's a lot of money when you add it up. We've got 80 students at Mitford, so that comes out at $45,600. And then we looked at things like major capital, and the major capital items are things like buses and vehicles, your laundry equipment like washing machines and dryers and your dishwasher, those sort of things. And so you never actually you would never actually budget to replace one of those entirely in 1 year. The way that you would do that is more likely just to budget over several years, so that you're putting so much money towards replacing them. So we decided to put $60,000 towards bus replacement. So that means that if there was 2 buses, they'd probably be replaced every 5 years. An 8-seater wagon replacement. And they didn't have one at the moment, but they decided that they wanted one, and so they were putting $10,000 in to replace that each year. Then $10,000 for contingency items like laundry and kitchen replacements, major things like that could go wrong, and so that came up to I think $80,000, and that left us $20,000. So just going back to our budget. Now, with my budget, I've just added another column onto it, and so I've said major equipment is going to be $80,000. So that means I've got 20 spare there, and then down the bottom you can see that one, the salaries, and I've got some spare money there now. I think $72,000. Now, you may want to put in a recreation officer or something like that to use part of that money. You might use a part-time recreation officer or something like that. But I'm hoping that will give you an idea of how this works. What we're trying to do, and I'm just going back in my slides now, we're trying to develop this program so that we have topics, I guess kind of weekly topics. You might have activities, then the resources, and you would work out from your budget how these resources were going to be funded. And somebody asked me yesterday, they said, is this your activity plan? And no, this is not your activity plan. Most organisations, I presume yours would be similar, they would do a one-term activity plan that came off this actual planning document, or they might do a fortnightly activities schedule that came off this planning document. So I hope this helps. Please feel free to get back in touch with us anytime her that you need more help with this. Okay, thank you.
Would you like lunch? Chicken kebab.
Can't get this to stop recording.
Fan back on.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
All back on.
Yeah.